Hi, I'm Jeff Walters, and welcome to The Minutes. And thanks for listening today. It's great to have you along on The Minutes this week. This is a City of Thunder Bay podcast. The Minutes takes a look at what happened at Thunder Bay City Council this past week. But this week we have a special edition of the show, looking at how the City of Thunder Bay operates. We have a couple of feature interviews with city management and administration, explaining how city services run all year long. You can find the Minutes wherever you get your podcasts, including our YouTube channel and our website, thunderbay.ca/theminutes. If you want to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening at City Hall, just hit that subscribe button. On today's episode, we'll have an interview with Parks and Open Spaces manager Cory Halvorsen. It's a big department, managing more than just what you might think of as a traditional park. Here in Thunder Bay, the Parks Department also manages cruise ships coming into the waterfront, the city's urban forestry program, and other behind-the-scenes operations. We'll hear from Cory Halvorsen on today's program. Well, they are all over Thunder Bay and used by thousands of people every year. Some are big, some are small. City parks, we have a lot of them, and depending on the season, they have very different functions. Cory Halvorsen is the manager of Parks and Open Spaces with the city, and he can tell us all about the different services that his department offers throughout Thunder Bay. Cory, thanks for coming into the Minute Studio today.
You're welcome.
So when people think about parks, they probably think about summer. At least I do. When I'm thinking green grass, that sort of stuff. Parks though are used year round. So maybe let's go to the winter season. What's some of the focus for you guys when it comes to winter?
Sure. So our main program in the winter season is our outdoor skating, our rinks program. So we have 31 sites across the city, and they operate from late December until mid-March, typically, weather dependent. So that's our core program that goes through the winter. So in addition to operating those sites, a lot of work goes into the actual rink setups. So in the fall, as early as late September or early October, we begin the process of setting up the boards and the lights and making sure everything's ready for December to start flooding. And then we do the reverse at the end of the season. Again, once we're able to remove the boards from the frozen ground, that's part of the shoulder season work is set up and tear down of the boards. Yeah.
How hard is it to maintain a rink? Like, you kind of look at them and you go, it's just ice.
Yeah, and again, if you're dealing with a single sheet of ice, it's much more straightforward. When you have 31 sites with multiple sheets of ice on many of those sites spread across a large city, being maintained by a relatively small group of staff, it's a challenge to orchestrate it in a way that people feel satisfied that you're attending the specific site that they're involved with. But we do a good job, and I think public feedback on the rinks has been positive over the last number of years.
Yeah, and you've got some rinks that also have two pads. So is there more of a challenge, or is there an offset, I guess, in work when you have one pad really good, you have one not so good? Like, how do they do that?
Yeah, so when we have two rink sites, it's typically, or two rink surfaces, typically it's because it's a highly utilized site, so the utilization numbers warrant the two rinks. But what that also does is once you get at the two rink level, it gives you the flexibility to always have one open while the other one's being flooded. So it helps the numbers stay high, because typically you'd have very few times where both rink surfaces are unavailable. So and those are typically at our supervised locations or locations where they have been supervised in the past. Yeah.
Now, this might be not a fair thing to say, but summer is probably a busier season in parks, I guess, or busy in a different way for you?
Yeah, it is busier in a different way. We have more services up and running, but we also staff up. We have a large amount of seasonal and students staff that we onboard in the spring, and that allows us to provide all the different services in the summer. That's more from a public-facing service level perspective. We have that difference between summer and winter. From a planning and a design and administrative perspective, we have a full year. There is no downtime When a service is not up and running, we are either evaluating or planning for next year, or planning for construction projects, the annual cycle of when you see construction, because within parks we have a planning group. So Parks and Open Spaces Planning not only plans out park development, but actually tenders, awards, and builds most of the things that you see going on throughout parks. Some of that work is coordinated through engineering, so engineering leads some of the trail reconstructions and possibly some parking areas and things like that. But we have a busy construction season, but in the off season we are planning, designing, tendering, and getting that work ready to be done beginning in May of each year.
So how do you plan for a park? Most people probably look at it and they go, it's an open space, or it's got some trees. How do you make a plan for a park?
Yeah, so that's where we do rely on the professional skills of our landscape architect staff that we have on site in our planning group. It's not just about the physical space, although that is a big piece of it. It really is about engaging residents. So public-facing sessions to get information from the park users about what the current needs are, what's working well, things like that. So then you put that into context with our overall asset management program and service levels that we provide. We try and do things in a fair and consistent manner. So we don't want to overinvest in a single location based on one consultation if that's not sustainable to provide similar services as we move throughout the other parks going forward in the future.
I'm thinking of some of the flagship parks, if you want to call them, that we have in the city. So, we've got the waterfront, we've got Chippewa, we've got Hillcrest, big in size and probably big in usage. Do those parks get different treatments than other parks, or different priorities?
They may warrant a higher level of service for certain infrastructure. Things would be installed there that may not be installed at, say, a neighborhood park. So we have different variations of that. Some sites where we would consider, putting in a splash pad, we wouldn't consider that in every park location. It would be a combination of the type of park and then our overall strategy for splash pad assets in general, because again, we can't put them everywhere. It has to be a measured approach, and decisions, they are largely based on the level of park that you're developing and what's warranted for assets in that park.
And would the same thing be fair to say for like playgrounds or that sort of equipment? Like that's kind of the decisions that you consider?
Yeah, so for some of our premier parks, for example, we just have gone through and renewed 3 of our key sort of community or premier park sites, that being Boulevard Lake, Centennial Park, and Vickers Park. So those represent essentially our 3 largest playground structures. They are either at heritage parks or premier community locations. The amount that we invest in those playgrounds is far higher than what we would invest in a standard neighborhood playground park. So we have different scales, probably about 3 different scales of playgrounds that you would see going in, depending on the size and the location of the park that it's going in.
Okay. So yeah, and now that I think about it, my kid's playground age, so I've been to a number of them throughout the city, and yeah, there's very different ranges of what you offer, right?
Yeah, and some of them, it's not just about how much of a playground, the size of the playground, it's also designed for certain age groups as well. So we try and have a balance. But again, the large premier sites and again, fully accessible sites at Boulevard Lake and Vickers Park, that essentially represents our highest level of service for playgrounds throughout the city. Is we have, again, essentially a fully accessible playground hub on either side of the city at this point, which was a huge step forward that we were able to make over the last few years.
Yeah. How have, I guess, the priorities or maybe the use of parks changed over the years?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We saw the true fundamental value of green space and parks as we went through the pandemic. That was a huge eye opener where everyone was relying on these spaces to be able to go out and socialize and engage as much as they could at the time. So that was important to see. I think that also translates into the future. Much of the use of the parks is free and passive use, and you can sort of program your own activities in a cost-effective way. So going forward, if cost of living starts impacting what you're able to decisions you're making about programming with your family and your children, I think knowing that there's accessible park space that provides amenities throughout the city, essentially at no direct charge, is going to be important as well.
And are there plans to try and, or maybe are there ways to get more people to use parks? Like, I'm assuming you want people to use these spaces.
Yeah, and a lot of the activity is generated by the enthusiasm of the community, and people are planning things and they see the spaces, they want to use it, and we try and support them as best we can through bookings or responding to any kind of requests in relation to the sites. Going forward, again, we're looking at ways to do a better job of just informing the public about everything that's out there. So one example of that is over the last year or two, we've put forward a public-facing web map for our outdoor rink program, so that from your phone or from your computer, you can go to this web map and it shows you the locations across the city, and you can pick on the locations and it shows you pictures of the rinks and it tells you what amenities are there. So we do want to develop that further so that it's not just about our rink program, obviously, and we have a summer version of it where you can show where all the playgrounds are, show pictures of them, sports fields, courts, things like that, so that all these public amenities that are available to use, people can see what options there are throughout the city, and they're just not aware that they even exist because they haven't been to that part of the city, right? So that is part of our strategy going forward.
What are some of the challenges facing the Parks Department?
Again, we do a lot. We provide a lot of different services, both from planning and administration perspective, but operationally, it's been acknowledged that there's, for the amount of staff that we have and the amount of seasonal staff that we rely on, we're spread pretty thin, right? So it's a challenge to always, keep the service level at a height, at a quality level that people deserve and expect, while still working within the restrictions of our complement, right? But again, I think we've got a pretty good balance going on, but it does get hectic throughout the season, the annual cycle of preparing, maintaining things, making sure they're ready to be open. Sports fields are a good example, where we have a short growing season, right? And people want to use them through the summer. So if you allow them to be used more than they should, then they deteriorate through the summer. So you have to actually strategically close off portions and do maintenance, and do that either at the end of the season, so in the spring they're ready to be used as early as possible, or you're actually blocking things off in the time of year where people want to get out and start using them. So we have limited assets, limited space, and limited resources to do all this work. So that's one example of where, even though we have some great assets out there, at times it's tough to meet all the competing needs, because again, it's the same crews that are working on some of the sports fields are the ones that we have possibly doing the general mowing and maintenance throughout parks. Again, there's just the number of services that we're providing, both public facing and kind of behind the scenes. People don't really notice. We have our own garbage collection system occurring throughout parks, so we have staff dedicated to collecting and disposing of the garbage that has been in the garbage containers. That's an ongoing program all year, and we have water system startups, every stuff. So there's an infrastructure component
Yeah,
that's
let's.
linked to both to planning and operations as well.
Yeah, so like, are those kind of maybe the two big behind the scene things that you do that people don't think of? Because I don't think of having to turn on and turn off water. Right, the tap is there. You just turn it.
Yeah, no, again, Parks owns and operates a lot of infrastructure. That's essentially how, that's part of, a large part of why the fit in infrastructure and operations is there, is that we do provide amenities that provide recreation, but the assets that allow that to happen are essentially infrastructure and supported by infrastructure. So we have underground utility systems, largely water systems, electrical systems that fall under the realm of parks and parks planning. So we track and inspect and maintain all those assets and have to include them in our capital asset program. And we have dedicated electricians and other specialized staff that do maintenance and work on that support not only just the maintained park spaces, but some of our specialized services such as campground services. Water and electrical systems are
Mm-hmm.
hugely important for that, and you know, we have a short season, so the startup every spring is very critical for getting that infrastructure commissioned and live in time for users to come and start using the spaces. The Marina Boater Services is another excellent example of that, where May 15th, the marina is open. At that time of year, we're still dealing with cold, relatively cold temperatures.
Yeah,
A lot of the water systems there are above, they're on the docks too, right? So they're largely impacted by air temperature at that point. So it's a balancing act of getting these things commissioned and available.
I was going to say sometimes there's even ice on May 15th, right?
Yes, so we have had years where you can't even bring your boats in yet. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's actually kind of funny, right? The marina's open if
Yeah.
you can get there.
Yeah.
And then even I was thinking of like Chippewa, like that's a pretty specialized spot, right? All the rides in that as well. That's sort of be a completely different ball.
Yes, amusement rides is a whole nother seasonal cycle that is very time sensitive. So out at Chippewa, their beginning setup of carousel was a big one right now because again, it gets set up and torn down each year,
right.
being an outdoor ride under a canopy. So yeah, in April, as early as possible in April, set up for that will commence and goes into May. And it's not just a setup. There's maintenance, there's TSSA inspections that have to happen prior to us even being able to open. So they have to be brought physically. They come on site, they do visual inspections. If there's any work that has to be done immediately before the rides open, it has to be done. Otherwise, typically they give a grace period so that we can still open at the beginning of June and get the work done in a timely manner. So yeah, there's an annual cycle. The repairs on those are very specialized. It all needs to be documented and signed off, and it's under the regulations that relate to amusement devices.
Yeah, and those are older rides too. Like they've been there since I was a kid, and then some.
Yeah, no, they are, and we do invest quite consistently in maintenance and repairs on them for that reason. We want to extend the life of them as much as possible because again, replacements of rides like that would be a significant financial investment.
Yeah, definitely. I know that you can't let the cat out of the bag of nothing that hasn't been publicly announced, but do you have some big priorities for parks in the year or maybe the next coming years?
Oh yeah, no, there's so much going on in parks right now. With we have the festival area. Our renewal project is well into the design stage now, so we should start to see some activity on site going forward, where that work will commence, and we'll go over span a couple of years before it's complete. Obviously, the conservatory facility renewal is right in the middle of phase 2 right now, so that work is ongoing and will be. We're looking at an opening for fall of 2025 as at least a soft opening at that point. So we're going to have to not only work through the facility construction process, but we have to have a updated and revised plan for operating and booking events and opening the doors again, right?
Right.
Because that facility went from sort of being half open for a decade, where basically the center of the public facility was available, but the wings weren't, and there was limited programming, to now we're excited to be able to open it, offer some different options for private bookings in one of the wings, and allow access to the whole facility. And we're working with partners to try and get integrate, not so that it's not just a city operated internally looking facility. There's so many opportunities with leveraging the production greenhouses and providing controlled access to the tropical display areas, so that there's synergies and opportunities with Lakehead University and Conservation Authority, and so we're actively working on those as well.
When it comes to the public, I guess, and hearing from partners, what do you often hear from the public, and what they want either changed or improved, or at least just their feedback in general?
We get a steady amount of feedback just on general performance for park maintenance. So we do like to hear from the public if there's something if there's a concern or a positive. We do want to get feedback, because there's a limited number of eyes that we have out monitoring all of our activities. So it is helpful for people to phone City of Thunder Bay Dispatch and provide that kind of information. Development of additional pickleball courts has been something that is front of mind. The permanent courts we installed at Boulevard Lake have been quite successful. We've actually carved out some hours at that site where we offer them to be booked, as opposed to being entirely passive.
Just show up,
use.
kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, so because we have leagues and groups that want to coordinate, and they need that controlled access, right? So that's tough to do with a single site when it's the premier site, because the public if they want to come and use it, they want to see the ability to use it. They don't want it to be booked, right? So we're working through that right now, looking at where our next best opportunity would be to provide similar level of service at another site throughout the city. So that might be one of the levels of service that is changing, and the demands have increased.
Cory, that's all I have for you today. Anything else you want to add before I let you go today?
There are so many services within parks. We haven't even touched on many of them. Golf services, hugely important program, very successful over the last number of years. Very seasonal in nature when it comes to how many people are involved in the service delivery. But yeah, we're gonna continue to leverage this great team to provide all the services that we do and improve on them every year.
Well, Cory, I appreciate you coming in today. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Cory Halvorsen, he is the manager of Parks and Open Spaces in Thunder Bay, and he joined me here today in the Minutes studio. And a big thanks for listening to The Minutes this week. Of course, if you want more information about City Council, agendas, or minutes, just visit thunderbay.ca/council. If you want to listen to past episodes or maybe provide some feedback, visit thunderbay.ca/theminutes. You can also find The Minutes wherever you get your podcasts, plus you can find us on YouTube and on our website as well. That's thunderbay.ca/theminutes. If you want to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening at City Hall, just hit that subscribe button. I'm Jeff Walters. Thanks for watching this week. We'll chat again next week. Make it a great day.